Good morning and welcome to this workshop of the Board of Trustees for Strategic Planning, and we are thrilled to have you all. It's always a nice way, in my opinion, to end the year with such a positive note and looking forward into the next year. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Williams, I guess, right?
Yes, thank you so much, and I appreciate everyone taking the time out today, and I'm very proud of the work that our Board of Trustees has done in providing us with the guidance that we needed to start. You know, in the past, we would come together, we would put all of our accomplishments on the wall for the year, and we would present to the board. And this year, we started with the board, where the board presented to us what their vision is for the next 3 years, what the recommendations are for us to move forward. And we brought President Madeline Pumariega, new president of Miami-Dade College. Congratulations. Thank you. She was willing to spend some time with us to help us work on that 3-year strategic plan. And so today, we're here to share more about our status with the plan and to reassure the board of the board's decisions, recommendations, as we move forward in fine-tuning that. And so Sabrina Crawford, Dr. Crawford has played a key role in partnering with Madeline on this to move us forward. And so I'm going to turn it over to President Pumariega and Dr. Crawford.
Thank you, President Williams. Thank you, everyone, Madam Chair. I want to start by just thanking you. I think the process and thanking everyone behind me because they've really done great work. I've been part of lots of strategic plans at the statewide level, institutional level. Sometimes consultants come in and I'd like to say almost ask you for your watch to tell you the time. And this hasn't been that kind of case, because I think what happens when that happens, at the end there's this strategic plan and it's on the shelf. It doesn't really belong to anyone. And I want to say that the team behind me and everyone at the college has really participated as we've developed, and we've started every meeting with your vision, what your expectations were. The survey, as President Williams said, gave us the foundation of here's where we're headed, here's the board's perspective, their vision, and then really relied on the expertise of the gold champions and leaders that have emerged and developed through the process. So in the first slide, I just want to share with you, just take you back to the process that we engaged in. The first in August was really internal data analytics, really looking at a lot of data analysis with Dr. Crawford. She gave me excellent data that we looked at. What were the patterns, trends? What did we think we needed to reverse as an institution? We also had the higher education landscape review. What's going to be, and this, you know, not just pre-COVID, but post-COVID, just the landscape of higher education and how it's changing. And so the strategic plan shouldn't be where the puck is, but the anticipation of where the puck is going. And I think that through this process, we've developed some strategies that get us there. And then we reviewed, you know, the highlights from the strategic plan previously, and then started to really build on this one. In September, we asked you to tell us, and so we did the board survey. You affirmed the college's mission and vision, and then you also told us, and we'll get to it in a couple of the slides, the expectation about the execution of the strategic plan. And then we had a full-day retreat with the college's executive team. And that was a tough day. I'm sure they're still, because we just toggled the whole day between the previous plan, your expectations, and what the data said. And I really pushed them hard on moving away from activities to strategies and being more strategic and not counting wins in the form of activities, but in high impact strategies. And that really began that process. In October, we took it to the college. Through COVID, it makes it a little bit more challenging to do this because you'd like to have some face-to-face, but via Zoom, we were able to have 3 town hall meetings where we were able to, from the faculty, the staff, and administrators, identify barriers and identify challenges and then put in place opportunities. And so that data is really rich, as Dr. Crawford and I talked about, because it's so important from the faculty's perspective. Where do they see the barriers are? And by the way, some of them were reflective of even your survey about, the communication. So you'll see a high impact strategy about communication. And I remember one of the recommendations of the board was to make sure that there was not only the fiscal alignment, but the alignment between the president all the way up and down the institution, and became evident that was an important strategy when we were having those town halls where a couple of hundred faculty and staff participated. And then in November, we integrated the feedback into the strategic priorities. The Gold Champions had an opportunity to go back, look at the board survey, the expectations of the board, along with the feedback from the college's faculty and staff and leadership, and start to develop high impact strategies. We've worked on refining that. Sometimes they were activities, so it went back to the drawing board and had to come back and think about it more strategically. And so here we're presenting the final plan in terms of recommendations to the board today. Just to quickly recap the board summary, again, asked, was the mission and the vision statement still reflective and true today? Unanimously, you all affirmed that, and you also affirmed that the pillars of academic excellence, economic mobility, and community engagement were as important today as they were when they were developed, with foundations on financial vitality and employee experience and engagement. These are the mission and vision affirmation, and again, I think that they both reflect the institution's core mission and where higher education is going as well. You said to us that you wanted the strategic plan to set the strategic direction for the college, identify strategic growth opportunities, align fiscal resources to strategic priorities, and recognize the college as a premier college. You also shared that the 3 components of a successful plan is clarity of direction, strong organization, and data-driven decision-making. And what I can assure you is that we looked at data every step of the way, and sometimes data reflects the hard work of the institution, and sometimes data doesn't reflect the hard work. And so we've also looked at those areas where we feel we could strategically be better. The areas that you ranked as important to be a national leader, to be recognized as a premier college, is in academic excellence, workforce education, innovation, community partnership, and economic mobility. And I think the strategies reflect that. And you said foundational areas of importance was student success. And I can tell you that the thread of student success and student success data is evident in all of the discussions that we had. Outstanding education, innovation, faculty and staff engagement, and financial sustainability. The opportunities that you listed, as well as the risks. The risks probably today with financial sustainability certainly very present as we look at the future of higher education, especially in the state. In terms of the summary of the workshop that we had with each of you, if you remember, because of COVID, we didn't do the Post-its and get up. You stayed at your respective areas, and we filled out color-coded cards. Those cards are best summarized in what you said around academic excellence, community engagement, and economic mobility. And so that informed the group, as well as ensuring that we prioritized, aligned, invested, and assessed all of the areas that we identify in the strategic plan. So when we think about academic excellence, you said to us that you wanted to make sure that students had a clear pathway from start to finish. You also talked about ensuring seamless access, holistic support, successful completion, and equitable outcomes. Focus on teaching and learning and program excellence, and be nationally recognized leader in workforce and innovation. And so that informed the visionary statement developed, and that is that SPC provides students guided pathways through high-quality programs that align to community needs and prepare students for success beyond SPC. A lot of the discussion was just not having students finish here, but what happened when they finish. How well did they do when they transferred to universities, or if they transferred into our own baccalaureate programs, or when they went to work. And so this goal was then separated into two areas. One, teaching and learning strategies, and the other, student success strategies. And listed here are the high impact strategies that the next step would be starting really an execution plan. After you all have an opportunity to look at it, then the team will develop those activities that align to these high impact strategies and keep coming back to creating that culture of collaboration. Equity minded is through this document, because one of the values that you said were important is looking at things through a lens of equity. What students are we leaving behind? What students are we not reaching? So you'll see not an equity-minded goal, but not an equity goal, but an equity-minded culture throughout the document. Instead of calling out, we're going to have one equity goal. You see it, I think, throughout the strategies. So I'd like to pause here on the teaching and learning and give you an opportunity for any insights, feedback, or comments, or you can tell me to continue. But I do want this to be collaborative as best we can.
Colleagues? I wanted to say that I appreciate this statement significantly. I know the team will recall 3 years ago when we were working on our strategic plan, we had a lot of discussion about academic excellence and where that fit in with the pillar, because we were kind of split, I think, on the team side versus the board side of academic excellence was just an expectation since we are a college. And so how did we factor that into specific goals when clearly that was just who we were and that was our general expectation? And I really compliment you all on how this statement is worded, because I think this takes it to the next level, and it does not say we will be excellent, it says we will be excellent because of these other things, and I appreciate that significantly. I think that takes into account what the board had talked about previously, not necessarily with you, but previously about, we all know we're going to have good academics, but what does that mean? So that's wonderful. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And what we did in this area is we pulled it out into two. In some, we don't have two components, but we said academic excellence is driven by teaching and learning. You can't drive academic excellence without a focus on teaching and learning. And if you remember, we talked about those pillars that Aspen says are characteristics of community college excellence, and teaching and learning is called out there. And so it's called out here. And in the next page, we call out student success. And they both complement each other, but they are different, and they need the intentionality to drive academic excellence. A focus on our trade, which is academic excellence, but then a focus on student success and achievement so that it is beyond SPC. And you can see here from start to finish, reflecting from the very beginning to the very end, how do we holistically support students throughout their entire entire pathway. So again, instead of calling out, we're just going to implement guided pathways, the strategy is that we're going to strengthen support for students from start to finish. And it implies they have a pathway to get there, and there's wraparound support. In this case, we do call out targeted interventions to close those achievement gaps, and that really speaks to being a data-driven institution, which is another pillar that Aspen said when you look at community college excellence, it's evidence that data is really paid attention to at the institution and reacted to and strategized with. And then something that was important around workforce innovation, the idea that we heard here, integrating certificate programs and industry certifications throughout workforce training. So how do students level up? How can you be recognized for the best in class with this industry certification, or the best in class with this stackable credential? Not just a degree, but that pathway throughout. This is the group that worked on academic excellence. You should be proud. It is a cross-collaboration of faculty, staff, and leadership at the college. I think that this is really one of the hallmarks of making sure that this strategic plan is implemented and executed at the college level, is having the team. Sometimes what happens is the team is assigned after. You know, you launch the strategic plan and then folks volunteer. And then they're like, oh, great, who wrote this? In this case, they've been working alongside with Sabrina and I writing this. So when they are charged with implementing it, it's not like, oh, what did we mean by that? Or there's an interpretation. We actually went back and forth on words and language and pushing. And this team, and you'll see that in every one of the pillars, and the foundational pillars is a cross-collaboration of the college. When you talked about economic mobility, it was to develop clear pathways that ensured student success beyond completion, collaborate with business and industry to ensure that programs align to workforce needs, and serve as a solid foundation for success. That SPC was recognized as a partner of choice for workforce readiness, contribute to the overall economic growth and increased employment opportunities in the region, and that leads to increased home ownership. It leads to increased return on investment, all of the things that economic mobility, and certainly education's that path, and then to be a leader in workforce programs. The visionary statement there is that SPC provides opportunities for our students to be prepared in in-demand careers and professional growth. This will contribute to their economic success and improve quality of life, helping end the cycles of generational poverty and drive economic growth in the community. And in this case, you have the visionary statement is broken into two areas. One is specific workforce strategies that talks about something that came up in everyone's card, aligning our programs to high demand, high wage. And so that's there as a specific strategic high impact strategy, collaborating with partners as well, and then connecting students to the world of work. We heard from you how other institutions might be known for students that graduate from English. There are phenomenal writers, and so if you're looking for one, you're known for that. This really talks about how are we intentional about having students have work-based learning opportunities that might be internships, but they also may be capstone projects or other innovative ways of creating that work-based learning opportunity for students. And the second part there is really the access strategies. Looking at removing the barriers, and this was important as we talked to faculty and staff about the barriers, perceived barriers, particularly for students that are first generation, are coming from low-income homes. How do we really redefine the student experience by removing the barriers? And so in a COVID environment, these barriers have become really loud and clear, right? It's almost like these physical barriers that you have that separate you. Before, those were imaginary. We would put tables and chairs that had some imaginary separation. These are hardcore separators today. What's happened in a COVID environment is that the college, like many other colleges, have recognized we have those up for students, but they've been invisible. And they're called our policies and procedures. And so in COVID, just like we call these out, so really looking strategically at removing those barriers. Position the college to be student ready, something we heard from you all and we also heard in the town halls is that there's always this expectation that students aren't ready for college. And so then we want to talk about how students aren't ready. How do we become ready for them? And that doesn't mean we drop our academic excellence. It just means we're strategic in meeting students where they are and then putting them on the right pathway with the right support services. And then creating pathways that increase educational attainment and enhance transfer and transition into baccalaureate opportunities. So in the previous one, we talk about stackable credentials, workforce alignment. Here, we really talk about economic mobility and how SPC contributes to the economic vitality of the community. And when we get to the dashboard, we have a metric for this, which is educational attainment for this region, which is work that's happening with the Tampa Bay Partnership and leadership and plugs into that strategy as well. The team that worked hard on economic mobility, as you can see here, from workforce to academic services to marketing, grants, faculty, diversity, equity, and inclusion made up this team. I'll pause here and take any comments that you may have in economic mobility before we move to community engagement.
Madam Chair, thank you again for putting all this together and for everyone at the college. You've put so many hours and so much thought into this. I think you hit on some pretty critical things here with economic mobility, and this is, I think, one of the more critical things that we do and also one of the hardest, because as you're talking, I'm hearing in my head the balance that we're going to have to achieve in certain areas when it comes to workforce strategies. We need the speed to implement these programs to stay relevant with what's going on in our community, but we also have to execute on a really high level and maintain quality of programs as well. It does nothing for us if we rush a new program into place and we do it poorly. So it's finding that balance, and then with the access strategies, you mentioned us being ready for whatever student comes our way, which we talk about all the time. And I don't know if there's anything harder that we do here. And again, it's the same balance that's needed. It's ensuring that we have a way to onboard students no matter what their background and help them become successful here while not lowering the expectations of what they need to do and accomplish while they're here, so that they're successful when they leave this place. So I think it's great that we hit on all those, and I think as we've been talking about the whole time, all of these need to be at the core of the culture at the college, and any decision that's made, we work through these things in one seamless manner, to take the next steps. So thank you.
Thank you. And I think when you speak about culture, it does start with the board, right? Setting the culture and then calling these things out in strategic priorities for the college, not in a vague way, but in a real direct way, so that the leadership team and the implementation team keep coming back to, is this a culture of being student ready, right? When we want to go back to beating up the student for not being ready, because we have all these processes, we come back and we say, no, we said we would be ready for any student that comes in, whether it's a student now we're trying to retool and get re-employed, or whether it's a student coming straight from high school, starting their collegiate career, and everything in between of the students that we serve. So I think this does speak to creating that consistent culture in the language as well.
I have a question about the visionary statement, and Trustee Gibbons had to step out, but I am reading his mind and his expectations, and one of the things he brings up all the time, which is specifically him, but I think all of us have talked about the desire for SPC to be the resource for employers in our community, and for us to be the very first phone call that employers make when they understand that they need to either train their workforce or retool and advance their workforce. And I think appropriately so, our vision statement is focused on in the college and what the college is, but I also think sometimes vision statements should be aspirational to say, we are that first phone call, and that's not good semantics, but and I was just curious if you all talked about that, if you feel like the strategy of just establishing those relationships reaches that, or do we need to take a first step before we can take the second step to be that resource? I just was curious about kind of if you all talked about that, what you thought about that, if you think that that's incorporated at all.
So I would say, and we did have that conversation, when we went to community engagement, and we move over to community engagement, we really then also, we were trying to hit it there in terms of, if I remember him saying, like, be the hub, be that convener, and trying to capture that in ways that we help the community. But certainly, this is why we're having this workshop. If there's places where we think we could do better or call it out, then this is, sometimes when you get into many iterations of this, you're like, oh yeah, we might have, because I remember at one place, we were talking like, be the, what was it, the hub, the convener.
I don't know, what does the rest of the board think, or?
I mean, I'll say I don't know that it belongs in economic mobility, because my understanding of that is for students and the generational poverty. But I think it should be in community engagement more specifically, because based on what I'm looking at, it still isn't. So I think it definitely needs to be called out in the vision statement. I just don't know that it belongs in.
So then we'll go to that one, and then we'll put that up kind of on the parking lot to see where we can modify. So in community engagement, you said to us, leverage community relationships to strengthen SPC brand and build partnerships, engage students in the community, and serve as a focal point for business, social, economic, government, and community institutions. And so there, the word that we developed instead of be the convener was be the catalyst. And so I'll pause there about whether that resonates. That SPC serves as a catalyst for positive change in our community through key partnerships, civic engagement, and service learning that holistically improves the quality of life in our region.
That resonates.
Does that resonate?
Yeah.
I mean, it's in there.
Like, if we execute on this at all cylinders, are we not the first phone call? Are we the convener? So.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so, yes.
We would be the first one to call off with that. Chair Cole, do you think we should?
I think it's in the positive change. I think instead of saying that, I think we could be more specific. I like the catalyst part of it, but I think positive change is really broad and vague. So I think maybe more specific.
More specific.
Chair Cole, when you talk about your feedback, were you thinking about SPC being like the #1 workforce provider, where people will call us to provide the training, whether it's a corporate training or some other type training for the community?
I was thinking even a bit higher level than that even if we're not providing the training, we're the first phone call to make that connection to the business. So we're either creating the program as we do, or we are pivoting our academic programs to be responsive, or we're telling our local employers that that is not something that we can do, but we're picking up the phone and calling our colleagues at HCC or at Tesco, you know, we are.
Or P-Tech or,
Exact
P-Tech,
P-Tech or wherever, any of our private providers that have those types of programs. I just don't want to lose sight of our desire to be at the forefront of workforce development, and if that still is collectively our desire, and how we really elevate that so it's in our vision or in the strategy.
So
I also think, just to piggyback on that, and I have been as loud about this as Trustee Gibbons has been, I don't think they know, right, that they can call us. And so I think it's powerful if this is a piece that's going to go out and be in the community for us to be saying specifically to the businesses, we want to be your solution. And so I think even from just an external standpoint, it needs to be more specific that we're saying, call us, let us help you. You know, I have multiple conversations with business owners who say, I had no idea you guys could do that. I had no idea I could call and ask for that, you know. So I think it's letting them know, hey, we're here, we want to help, you know.
you're right, and I want to come back to that because aha moment I had one day in the Council 100. But I want to come back to two strategies that see if they resonate. In 2.2 with workforce strategies, we say collaborate with regional partners to advance workforce training programs and initiatives that support specific economic development and workforce needs. In community engagement, in 3.2, we say position SPC as a community leader and convener in economic innovations and embedding community engagement learning across career and academic workforce offerings. Within those two strategies, is there something stronger that we could call out, or would you like the visionary statement to be what calls it out stronger? So you have 2.2 and 3.2
Statement.
in the visionary statement.
Because if I'm an employer, I'm probably not reading the fine print, but I might read the headline and the focus. I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
Perfect.
I would tend
Makes
to agree.
sense.
Okay, so we will go back and tweak the visionary statement on community engagement to be bolder, is what I'm hearing, right? Just don't be so wordy, call it out. We are your first phone call. So we'll figure out, but the strategies, both in, again, 2.2, do call about being that convener, if you will, and then we call it again about being a community leader and convener.
So in 2.2, would you envision regional partners being both employer partners as well as institutional partners? So
It's everyone, yeah.
Would be both.
Tampa Bay leadership, it's the county, it's the city, it's the school district, it's the tech colleges and tech centers, it's everyone in the region that's working on workforce and economic development.
And I would say, Chair Cole, it's helpful to have it in both locations because we do have some work to do within the community engagement area of gathering those groups of people, identifying the full groups, and really clarifying those key partnerships, and then building it upon in the economic mobility for our students' access.
I know it's a cliche, but without using the word workforce, it may look like we're not doing it.
Right.
Even though all the words are here that imply that we're doing it. If you're a third party and it doesn't say workforce development or responsiveness to employer, I mean, don't know the employer. And then I also, in 3.1, community engaged learning, that's certainly a term of art. And so to Trustee Bello's point, if the outside world is looking at our plan, and they're non-academics, is there something more descriptive that we can say? I agree that it's probably important to use a term of art that's known in the academic world, especially with our desire to align with Aspen goals and moving forward to be compared very intentionally to other institutions. But since this is also an external document, is there a way we can broaden those strategies just to explain what CEO is?
Absolutely.
More
Yep.
practical.
Yeah, the goal is to get your feedback, and then come back and huddle with the teams and redefine and just clarify. This is, you get to be that external audience for us. Again, we've been working on this internally, so we get to check it with you and say, hey, does this resonate? Does it make sense? And so we'll provide a little better defined clarification there without getting too wordy of our internal. And so in community engagement, I have be more specific about being that first call in the visionary statement, and then on community engaged learning, can there be language that is more outward looking than inward looking, if you will. Okay. The community engagement group, again, you see a strong collaboration among leadership, faculty, and staff, and cross-disciplinary as well as cross-campus. In the employee experience and engagement, you said hire and retain excellent workforce and ensure SPC is that model, and encourage alignment of strategic vision and priorities. And in this case, the visionary statement is SPC builds an inclusive culture of care, a sense of belonging, empowerment, and trust, with 3 strategies that talk about an employee experience model, which is comprehensive, about not only the way that we attract employees, but how we retain talent, how we do professional development and provide career growth. Also, a adoption of a comprehensive communication structure to ensure transparent and effective communication. That was clear as we had our town halls, that like you would expect with an institution so large, that not everyone knows what everyone else is doing. So certainly a commitment here to have a really high impact strategy about communication. And then also in terms of innovation, leveraging everyone's talents to the highest level by creating a real community of trust through collective decision making and idea sharing. And that's the intentionality of developing innovative programs and practices. You can't be an innovative institution that we say we're going to be in number 1 and number 2 when you don't create intentionality for employees to bring ideas based on a culture of data and informed decision making as well. And so that's one of those about how do we really create an employee experience and engagement and being intentional about it versus meetings and professional development that we previously had listed, like how many workshops did people go to, but really creating a model for that.
And that includes cross-communication too, I think, which is important. You know, the math department talking to English, even though it doesn't seem like there's much that gels there, right? But everyone having a conversation and maybe finding different creative ways to improve upon what we're doing, you know, at the 30,000 foot view, by getting different ideas from kind of getting outside your circle and talking to everyone.
Yeah, excellent point.
On this one, what I really liked was the idea sharing and core elements. And for me, as president, the communication has to come both ways. And that's important to me. I think you know that is very important, that the voice of the employees are also being heard.
And being a leader in the state, because we all look towards SPC and the collaborative labs. I mean, the truth is everyone replicated this, but no one was able to really duplicate it the way that you all do collaborative labs. So it would seem that it's an opportunity for you to be a leader in the state on developing that collaborative idea sharing, that it's presentations at national conferences on how you become a college of ideas. And when I mean ideas, it isn't running around and doing activities, but that there is a space and place to really tackle, whether it's addressing barriers and idea sharing ways. What Zoom has taught us is that we used to call meetings, right? And everyone has to come from every campus. And what we've seen through Teams and Zoom and everything else is that really we can even that can be a great platform to generate innovation, because people don't have to leave their campus. They can stay and we can have more people participating in those kinds of sessions. But it takes intentionality at all levels to do that.
I have a
question, and it may move into the next one with financial vitality within the health of the college as well, but is this the point where we address or provide some confirmation or commitment to provide the resources to achieve these experiences and goals?
Financial, we'll get to the next one and see if we hit the mark there.
Okay.
The employee experience group, again, you can see there a diverse group of individuals from the college participated in developing these strategies. We heard from you with budget workshop, during the workshop, budget alignment, affordability, alternative budget streams, strategic enrollment and growth, and keeping tuition low as part of financial vitality. And in this case, the visionary statement is to create a sustainable financial model for the college using transparent budget processes, prioritizing partnerships, and aligning with academic excellence, economic mobility, and employee engagement. And so one is enhance and prioritize entrepreneur practices and opportunities of the college. That speaks to generating alternative revenue sources. How at the college level do we have an entrepreneur mindset? Through data-informed decision-making, develop processes and practices that enable fiscal stability and support strategic priorities. So that calls specifically about the decision-making of not only supporting strategic priorities, but also fiscal stability. You don't want to give up fiscal stability because you're chasing your strategic priorities. So that couples both, which you talked about a little bit, the push-pull, and that delicate balance of pushing forward and balancing both the needs of the institution, the needs of the students, and the needs of the community. Ensure that facilities optimize learning and align with the future needs of the college, including technology and services that support the efficiency and effectiveness of the college. And so we heard in the town halls about technology. Certainly an array of technology support, probably what's been able to help the institution move through COVID. For institutions that didn't have technology infrastructure, they really did have to pause and struggle during COVID. You all were able to pivot quickly and had the strategic support. What we did hear from the town halls, that it seemed to be a la carte, an a la carte menu versus a real signature suite of technology that supports efficiency and effectiveness. And so that came out in a couple of places about how is technology really helping us be efficient and effective versus busy. So that's why we call out here facilities and technology working together to support efficiency and effectiveness at the college. And then execute data-informed enrollment management strategies that reflect the changing higher education environment to ensure enrollment success and fiscal vitality. And so enrollment is here as a call out to fiscal vitality. We can't be a fiscally stable institution if our enrollment strategies are not aligned to our fiscal policies. And this group, small and mighty group working on financial vitality, and it says there it appears small, but really the group is driven by college-wide initiatives. They feel like their job is to support what all the other pillars and foundations are doing. Implementation and next steps. In the survey, you said to us, what do you think were key components of a successful and implementable strategic plan? You said strong organization, clarity of direction, readiness for change, data-driven decision-making, and capacity to implement. I'd like to pause there and ask you if you believe what we've presented hits the mark on what you perceived was important to be able to implement. Did the strategies we present are they well organized and easy to follow? Are they clear? They demonstrate a level of readiness for change. I think the cross collaboration of the teams that worked on these speaks to the readiness of change. We certainly did everything based on data, I know, ad nauseum, and the capacity to implement, again, speaks to the cross collaboration. So I'd like to pause there. I'm just checking.
think with the things that we discussed being integrated, then it would be more clear.
Okay.
I think this is the most clarity we've had since I've been here, which is a great step forward for at least the next 3 to 5 years to be able to focus in and have a clear understanding with everyone who's involved with this institution, not just the Board of Trustees or the president, but throughout the fabric of the entire college. I think this is a great roadmap that's been put together.
Perfect, and we'll, Trustee Bell will make those adjustments. And then you also said strategic plan updates quarterly and a dashboard. And so we, as we're developing the plan, and Dr. Crawford will talk about it a little bit more, we are accounting for a quarterly update, and then we've developed a dashboard for the board. Your responses when we had our workshop, and back to, it was the pink cards, the board's contributions on the implementation of a strategic plan and how you believe it needs to be implemented. So you set the vision and facilitate opportunities. Certainly the adjustments on the visionary statement is exactly in alignment of the role of the board setting that vision. Bringing the pillars together and achieving in which the community and the college would receive national recognition, sets the vision and priorities consistently and measurable results, and being the go-to. And not only did we say go-to for government, but we really, in our strategic priority, said go-to for the entire region and the state as well. And then looking at data, implementation of the strategic plan is the president's job, introduction to high-impact partners, and hold administration accountable for mission and vision. And so what we designed here is a bit of a dashboard. If we looked at an executive board of trustees dashboard, this is what it would begin to look like. Retention is important because it's connected to enrollment and it's connected to the completion rate, and the course success lead both up to those areas. And so you see there, there's lots of data behind that, disaggregated by race, by course, but this gives you, as a board of trustees, a high level in terms of the college's student success, as well as enrollment, a balance of how many students are pursuing the AA, the AS, which is typically workforce programs, the bachelors, which are also workforce programs, certification, non-credit, and those that are maybe just upskilling and haven't decided. So we thought this was a good view for the board to look at in terms of the diversity of enrollment, of the enrollment portfolio of the college, as well as a budget piece there with student hours, income versus actuals. And then when we look at employee engagement, participation in professional development, when we look at economic mobility, how are we contributing to Tampa Bay's degree attainment goal? And you can see there how that continues to increase, and it's in part because of the number of graduates that SPC is graduating at the end of each semester. And then civic engagement was the return on investment for the students and faculty that contribute their time to the community. You can see the economic impact. We can change those around, but it was to give you what an executive dashboard would kind of look and feel like. And Sabrina and her team have done a great job, because when this is online, it'll actually drop. It's alive. It's not stagnant like it is on paper, but kind of was our first step. And so I'll turn it over to Sabrina now, who's going to walk us through next steps and our spring timeline.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
About the dashboard? This is a good idea. Is there a way that, that we could have like year over year, like the last 2 years of what it looked like prior to these numbers?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That way you have something to compare it to.
Yeah, we can do a
Like retention rate, if you say last year retention, if you put a little line, last year retention was at 54%, it's at 60.
we can do a trend line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the good news is when this is online, if you click on there, it drops down and you see it, right? When
We'll be
we're,
able to do it from year over year, and then we'll try to build in a trend line for you so you can see it. I just wanted to kind of get a high-level view of like, here's where we're thinking those metrics might lie. There's also one that's specific to economic impact on the community that we're looking to maybe possibly build in. There's that one's one further, and the possibility of the, not just participation numbers, but something else that speaks to professional development and maybe upward mobility of our employees. So just along those lines of where we're headed.
because what we did find is this, without a doubt, a very data-rich institution. But so, believe me, when you only have a certain amount of real estate, this is a great process, right? Because everybody wants to see their number. We're like, nope, it's an executive dashboard. So what the idea is that each goal will have its own dashboard, which will feed into this. So each pillar will end up with its own little executive dashboard, so that team can see their key performance indicators in a dashboard for that pillar, which feeds into the executive dashboard for the college, which is what the board sees.
I have a question, sorry. On the 2025 goal, 60% Tampa Bay degree attainment, we don't have 19 numbers in there. We're almost at the end of 20. I'm just curious why.
So it's pulled by the Florida College Access Network, and so we have to wait for them. So this 18 is the one that they just pulled this fall. They're a year behind in pulling it. So, and someone else asked me why I'm not using the 2030 governor's goal, because we're part of the Tampa Bay LEAP initiative. They set their goal prior to the governor setting his for 2030, but we can continue that forward if we wanted to. It's just we're using their metrics and their data.
The governor's executive orders that Florida would be #1 in workforce by educational attainment. And so right now we're number 20. And how that's determined across the country and through the Lumina Foundation is that how 25 to 64-year-olds, what's the percentage of them that have a credential beyond high school? It can be a certificate, a high-quality certificate. It can be an associate, a bachelor's, and beyond. Why that really matters with economic development is that when companies are looking, there's probably 4 or 5 major recruitment firms that recruit for companies, whether they're thinking about moving to this region, moving headquarters. Their talent numbers is they look at educational attainment. Will they have the talent if they grow? And so that's why educational attainment's tied to the governor's workforce goal, which is to be #1 by 2030, which would be at the 60%. And then the chamber Florida Chamber has that goal, and then they have 80% of students having employability skills, or the workforce having employability skills.
So when you say Tampa Bay degree attainment, you're talking about the region.
The region.
Just the region.
Not SPC.
Right.
Yep.
Got it.
There was one for Pinellas County, but we feel like our students are largely from all of the different counties around it, so we went with Tampa Bay as a region instead.
And you produce probably the largest number of graduates in the region, along with HCC, that stay in the region. Not to say that USF doesn't produce, but in the case of USF, some are exported back out. That means they get their degree here, but go to work where they are from. In the case of SPC and HCC, which really make up that workforce of the region, 9 out of 10 graduates are found working in this region that you graduate. So again, this is a really outward-looking number because it speaks to you as a board being able to sit in economic development meetings and talk about educational attainment and being a driving force for that for the region with the numbers of graduates that you produce each year.
Any further questions?
On the dashboard, while we do have a Tampa Bay degree attainment, we have our retention and completion rate, and our attainment is higher than the Tampa Bay one. As Trustee Gibbons stated, being able to see the comparison would be helpful. Will we bring this back after we fine tune it to the board?
Yes. Yep, I'm going to talk about all that in my next steps right now.
Right, this is your feed, this, again, we took our first stab at what we thought an executive dashboard could look like, so we're bringing it to you for any recommendations you might have, and then we would come back and tweak it.
I guess on that Tampa Bay degree attainment, one thing that I hate to get too complicated, but from our standpoint, would we want to see a sub-number of where SPC is? Because our completion rate doesn't necessarily equate to degree attainment, right? Because it might be a certificate, or unless that all goes into the number. So I mean, if there are, because if we're looking at the SPC board, what is SPC doing to help our region achieve this goal, to help the governor achieve his goals? I would want to know that we're moving up, institutionally.
Yeah, so part of, as you were saying that, I was thinking one of the things we could put there is just degree production. So two different numbers. Degree completion, which is measured by Aspen and IPEDS and all of that. And then just degree production. Production is just a sheer absolute number. The number of graduates that you produced that walked across the stage and earned a certificate, a degree, which count towards. And so if, what was the last graduating class this last year? How many?
It was like 6,900.
6,900. So if you were sitting here and you were in front of the mayor, you'd say, well, the region's attainment level is 54%, and do you know that we produced nearly 7,000 graduates for our region last year, right? And so that's economic mobility and economic development and the role that the college plays in that term. So we could have an absolute, kind of almost like a tickler, that you're going the number of graduates that you produce.
And probably on the economic mobility dashboard, you'll see some more of those details. And so when you want to dig down into that details, if you're the board champion who sits on the economic mobility, you'll have another dashboard that you'll be looking at with the team where they talk about, here's the initiatives that you've been doing each year, here's our success rates in these different things. And that feeds in. As a board, you would get copies of all of those. Right. But a deep dive discussion would just be with that board champion. And then you could bring that information back here to share with each other. Can you go to the next slide for me, please?
Yep.
So our spring timeline, as we said earlier, our goal moving forward from this day is we're going to spend the next 3 months really refining, taking your feedback, coming back with some revised language. And what we're looking for in the revised language is that very easy to understand, community-minded language. So the language in the document right now is very verbose. It is lovely to send to something like a grantor, or at the Aspen Prize. But what we want everybody in our community, as well as the SPC family, to be able to say, for economic excellence, we're doing these 6 things. It's like an elevator speech. So you're going to see it much more condensed and much easier and faster to be able to say. So if you needed to walk around with a document like this, it won't contain this language. It's going to contain the community language. Here's what we're focused on. You want to know what it is? This is what it is. Very simple. The other wording will be in the background so that we can write with it and use it, or the grant department can use it, and whenever we want to write up how awesome we are, we have that really great language. So that's going to be our next 3 months, as well as identifying those initiatives. So we've been very clear with all of our committees, or within all of our committees, that we can only do 1 or 2 things well every year. We can't do 100. So the strategic plan will be very condensed. So underneath academic excellence, here's 6 things we want to do. Our focus for year 1 are these 2. So you'll know exactly where we're headed. And here's some other options that are under consideration but haven't been given an actual date yet, because we want to see how we do with our first 2 so we can refine and move forward with those. We also want to spend some time once we come up with this to hold another set of town halls. So everybody is on board, they can present their feedback, they can make their suggestions for any kind of barriers that they see, any suggestions for opportunities that they see within those areas that we're trying to focus on. And then finally in May we want to be able to bring back that language, those ideas, a revised dashboard, possibly an outline of what those individualized pillars and foundational element dashboards might look like, so that you have a clear picture of what we're hoping to move forward with in July. Any questions on that? And to talk a little bit further about the updates, going back to that idea that you want to see something with the dashboard and you also want to see something quarterly, we have a couple things that we're hoping to plan on doing. The first one is obviously we always come back to our strategic planning session in December. This is when you get your annual report, right? You get all of the big stuff. You'll get all five dashboards plus the overview dashboard for discussion, for us to talk about how great we're doing and to be able to move us forward into the next year. That would be followed by those metrics that are updated on a semester basis. You would get those updates because remember your big dashboard is really updated once a year. Those are high-level metrics, they're annual metrics. There's not a lot of fluctuation that's moving in those. But those ones like course success that you would want to see, you'll see those in January right after the fall semester, and again you'll see them in May right after the spring semester finalizes. Anything that we can update, that'll go into your board packet for your review. And then for the board champions, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to sit with the committee, ask questions, hear about all of the good work that they're doing. So those would be following the March and the October board meetings. And that's when you'll have a chance to really talk about the nitty-gritty dashboards. What is the work that's going on? What is the success that's showing? Where do you think you're headed? What are the pivots that you've had to make across the semesters? So that gives you the 4 times a year that you actually get the updates, and then the one big strategic planning session in December. And if that sounds okay to you, if you have suggestions or other things that you'd like to see for that.
Great. And then I'll just close with community college excellence. As we started, what did Aspen consider important characteristics in colleges that have won the Aspen Institute Prize? And so they talk about strong leadership, communicate and build an urgency for a clear vision focused on student success. We believe that this strategic plan is headed exactly in that direction so that it's clear, and inspire and sustain a culture of change focused on innovation, data-informed practice delivery, and shared responsibility. And we think that this crosses all of the pillars as well. Guided pathways, building those clear pathways for students from start to finish, and the support that they need around that. And clearly that was there. Teaching and learning, exceptional colleges set the expectation that faculty and staff continually improve their own practice. And again, that calls out a strategic priority in that area. Partnerships, which we discussed in both both pillars of economic mobility and community engagement, really speaks to partnerships and those ties to the region. And then the use of data, and I think that throughout we talk about the use of data and have made data-informed decisions. So we kept this very much foundational as we were developing not only the survey, your feedback, but also how did we make sure that we also reflected these characteristics of community college excellence. So thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? Thoughts? Excellent job to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a different process this year, and we appreciate it. And Ellen, thank you for your effort. Lead the way for sure. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I wanted to say that I think starting with the board is the smartest strategy, right? To set the vision, because we kept coming back to those flashcards. I summarized them, but I kept coming back to them. Somehow seeing your handwriting hit it closer than when I summarize. I would be like, no, let me see. And so at one moment I was like, check, yes. Okay, check, yes. And I think that you certainly helped us develop that vision forward. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity, and President Williams, thanks for entrusting me.
No, thank you.
Just glad she could read our handwriting.
I know.
I know.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Yes. Well, I don't know. Does anyone have any other business before the end of the year?
The only thing I wanted to share is the phone call that I got from a mom whose husband graduated from SPC and her son graduated this past Saturday. She had reached out initially, really upset that it was not going to be in person. And on Saturday, she reached out to say it was amazing and you did a great job. And it was a wonderful experience. So
Thank you so much. It was the collaborative labs, it was marketing, it was Bernard's team. I'm really proud of the online graduation. We had at some points over 800 people on the line. It was pretty personal. Thank you for sharing that. Pretty personal.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Anything else? Well, with that, I'd like to wish everyone, I know we're in the end of Hanukkah, and it's a wonderful miracle in and of itself, and leading into the Christmas season, and a Happy New Year. I know people are looking forward to 2021 for sure, and we have a lot to be thankful for this year at St. Petersburg College, and a lot of hard work and things that we've overcome, and looking forward to the next year as well. So thank you all, and I hope you have a wonderful break. You all deserve it. So
Thank you.
enjoy. We're adjourned.